Hi guys, Jean-Marc the Edit Doctor here to fix this edit. Before we get started, I just wanted to ask you to subscribe below, and when you do, click the little bell icon next to it and then click all so you get notified every time we release another one of these videos. Today I've got a baller edit from a guy named Morgan Lott who works at ManeCo. He is a beast editor and I am super pumped to share his work with you guys. So without further ado, see what I did there? Never mind. Let's go.
We're a few days away from 2020, so we're talking New Year's and resolutions. I know this year I'm hoping to work my way through a few books. Oh, and maybe cut back on the garlic bread. Anyway, give us a shout. We want to know your best tips and tricks for keeping those resolutions alive.
Gosh, the more I watch this edit, the more I love this thing. It is so good. Just great work across the board. The sound design is amazing. The soundtrack is perfect. Just all around awesome. Now let's dig in and see if we can't break it down and see what makes it work and how it might even be better. Narratively, there's a lot going on in this edit. There's a lot of cuts, a lot of action. There are 3 characters kind of intercut, which is actually kind of ambitious when you think about a 60-second spot. But at its core, this edit really is about comparing and contrasting 3 people who are committed to their workouts and they use ladder to help themselves get there versus those people that follow the traditional ebbs and flows of New Year's resolutions. The super interesting thing about this narrative overall is that it's not about 3 people changing. It's actually about 3 people staying the same. And it's much like the movie Gladiator, in which the story isn't necessarily about a changed character, but a character who rather refuses to change despite all the things that go on around them. Actually, I should probably review Gladiator. Speaking of which, let me know if you want me to review any movies down in the comments below. Anyways, the point of this piece really is that these 3 characters are constant while the world is sort of changing around them. This is really clear towards the end, where obviously you see them working out with a lot of people, the time passing, they're obviously using ladder to help themselves work out better, and then all of a sudden, as time passes, the people disappear, and that leaves our main 3 characters working out alone. And of course, there are some beautiful shots of the actual product and how you use it, and then finally a title at the very end that kind of sums it all up, that you want to have rituals over resolutions. So in that way, this piece is really strong. However, I think there are a couple of minor narrative tweaks that we can make that would make this piece even better. So right up front, we see a lot of imagery here with a bunch of different little quick edits of people working out, and in a way that actually seems a little bit jumbled right off the block, and I'll explain why. First, we see a jogger, underneath of which we hear this.
A few days away from 2020, so we're talking New Year's and resolutions.
Okay, so we get this message that this is about New Year's resolutions. Then we see another guy, but then we jump to a calendar, and then we jump to a swimming guy. Now, the way this is laid out, you might actually think that this story is primarily about these people, and you would be partially right. But when you're telling a story about characters or a character that is consistent, you need to accentuate the change in the world around them in order for that consistency to be unique or interesting. In Maximus's case in the movie Gladiator, for example, he's actually forced into slavery very early on in the movie, and he's forced to fight in different battles. He's actually out of control of a lot of his life decisions, even though he has a very singular focus, and he tries to maintain that despite all the changes that go on in the world around him. His singular focus is, of course, to avenge the murder of his wife and child. Man, I really need to review that movie now. But the point is, in a case where your character or characters are constant, the only way to show that they're overcoming is to show the change that's happening around them. In other words, to make a stationary object seem like it's moving, you have to show the world moving around it. You can think of it as a plane standing still, and to create the illusion of flight, you might move the world around it. And that's what's happening here. From the beginning to the end, these characters are basically doing the same activities. You've got running and swimming and lifting and rowing and all that stuff. So obviously, in order to show that they're changing, or that they're overcoming something, we have to show something different. What is that thing that's changing? Well, clearly throughout this whole piece, it's time. And that is expressed primarily through, you guessed it, the calendar. So let's take a look at this edit with all of the elements that have to do with time highlighted. So here you can see it from beginning to end, every single audio and visual representation of where there's a mention of time that compels this story along. I've highlighted these green ones specifically because they talk about New Year's resolutions in the voiceover, but they don't necessarily propel us along the axis of time. At the very beginning, we hear this voiceover.
We're a few days away from 2020, so we're talking New Year's and resolutions.
And then obviously we have our first image of the calendar, which sets it up as a calendar. And then we have a close-up right here. Moving forward, we have obviously a strike through here, and then we have him working out, and then we have this kind of television shot where we see the calendar again, and then we communicate it's now New Year's, and we see this giant crazy flock of people going in to work out. And then towards the end you get this really intense hypercut or intercut between the calendar that's showing the passage of time and the people working out. So now that we can see that time actually plays a critical role in telling this story, let's see how we can tweak it to make it a little bit clearer right up front. In the original edit, we have the jogger who's jogging, along with a voiceover that explains we're talking about New Year's resolutions in the year 2020. Then we have Jim Bro here, and then we have some calendar shots, and then we have another person swimming. That being said, it's a bit confusing because I'm not entirely sure which character we're supposed to follow, or if there's some narrative thematic connection between all those characters. And so when we introduce more people, it almost feels a little bit more chaotic. If we simply rearrange one of these shots, I think we can take care of that problem.
We're a few days away from 2020, so we're talking New Year's and resolutions.
Okay, so what I've done is I've actually taken the shot of the calendar, I moved it in between this character here and this character here. And the idea is that we are essentially setting up the theme, the thing that connects all of these characters. Now we see kind of what thematically unites them. It also serves as a nice visual handoff from the voiceover that's talking about New Year's resolutions to a physical representation of that right here. Then when we see this calendar later on, we go, oh yeah, of course I've seen that. That's what's judging the passage of time. And when we see it again right here, it makes a little bit more sense. The only other tweak I have is actually at the end, where we show that these are the 3 remaining people in the gym and that they were the only ones who followed through. You can see he's working out alone, and then she's kind of working out alone, but you can't really see that she's alone. There might be other people in there. So the thought was, hey, why don't we actually add back in this shot that reveals very specifically that those treadmills are empty. It's a small thing. It helps, I think, a little bit to communicate the major point, which is that with ladder, you're actually able to achieve those goals that other people can't because they're just setting resolutions and not rituals. Now, obviously, I'm using some hacks here because you can see she's got a water bottle in this shot, but she doesn't have it in this one. And that's obviously a continuity issue just based on the fact that I don't actually have the raw shot here. I'm actually pulling this from way back here in the edit where she's doing that exact same thing. Those are actually my only 2 tweaks to this edit, and I know it's totally subjective, but I think they help clarify some of the story beats throughout. But overall, this edit is gorgeous, and there's some really cool, amazing shots in here I'd like to highlight. For example, the use of fireworks to communicate rapid bursts of energy that ultimately end in nothing. Great thematic idea here. Listen. We immediately see that visual of crazy frenzy in the skies paired with this, which is just a frenzy on the streets of people in workout attire rushing to go to the gym. And this is a thematic shot here. This isn't one of the 3 main characters in our story, which can be a bit confusing, but it serves to highlight the thematic purpose of this piece, which is to say, don't be one of the crowd that just makes a bunch of resolutions, runs to the gym, and then forgets about their commitment a couple weeks later. Be the person that thinks about it, stops, and decides what they're gonna do. Aesthetically, the shots are super, super beautiful. The sound design is awesome, and the music is incredible. Specifically, the sound design and music towards the end. Take a listen to this. It's perfect. It is so on brand. And I love the fact that there's this sound design accentuation of those few days at the very end before we see the last people in the gym are our main characters. Honestly, I could go on and on about how awesome this edit is, but suffice it to say, Morgan Lott and the ManeCo team are extraordinary. You guys crushed it. So seriously, thank you to Morgan for letting me dive into this edit. You are a legend. If y'all want to see more of Morgan and ManeCo's Beast edits, go ahead and check out their information in the description below. And if you want thoughts or feedback on an edit, hit me up in the comments below and we'll make it happen. That's it, everybody. So if you could, subscribe up there, hit the little bell, click all so you can get all the notifications. And if you want to see another Fix This edit, check it out right over there. Oh, and of course, smash that like button. And if you notice something I didn't, go ahead and throw it in the comments below and we'll talk about it. Thanks so much, guys. Edit Doc out.